Summertime, when it's hot outside, streets are bare, there's no one there, and the valley's wide.
Coming to you from the University of Minnesota, Rochester,
Hearts of gold,
our town.
run forever on the open road. They got
The past is prologue, they say. Today's guest, Wayne Gannaway, the new executive director of the History Center of Olmsted County, he is here to tell us why we need to keep Rochester's history alive. Hello, Wayne.
Hi, Danielle.
Okay, so I hear you're from Minnesota, and
That
now
is right.
and now you're back.
Yes,
Can you tell
yes.
us, what brought you back?
Well, I have worked all over the Eastern Seaboard, and I know that I'm a Minnesotan, and so as my kids, I've got two boys, as they started growing up and they started picking up accents, New England accents, and then later Southern accents, I kept thinking they need to have the really weird Minnesota accent. So,
Which is a great accent,
Which
by
is
the
a
way.
great accent,
Yes.
yep. So I decided, and my wife is from St. Paul, so we decided, you know what, we need to finish up in Minnesota. And so we decided, let's get back to Minnesota, and it's a great state. And I love southern Minnesota. I love the landscape. I love the stories that people have to tell down here. So this is really ideal.
Well, we're excited to have you back, and you are the new executive director of the History Center of Olmsted County. So you've worked at numerous sites with some rich American history. Can you tell us a little bit about your past work? You mentioned New England.
Sure.
So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, one of my first jobs was working as a curator of restoration at the Mark Twain House and Museum in Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
So that's where Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Clemens, that's where he lived with his family, and he wrote some of his most famous books in that house. And so I was really able to get under the floorboards, get it behind the walls, and restore that place to the way it looked when the family lived there in the 1880s. So it was super fun and super exciting, and Twain is said to be one of the United States' first celebrities. So you really learn a lot about the country and our nation by learning about Twain.
That is so awesome. Now, obviously in Rochester we have Mayo Clinic as a historical presence. What are some other things that are amazing about Rochester's history that is not necessarily focused on how the Mayo Clinic came to be, so to speak?
Yeah, I think one of the things that it's important for people not to forget is that this started out as, of course, the land of indigenous peoples.
Okay.
That of course is something that we should never forget, and to always remember that those native folks have lives and have cultures today. So that's first important to remember. But the other thing to remember are those newcomers who came into and really forced out the Native Americans. But they were immigrants, right? And they were farmers. And so I like to remind myself and folks that I talk to that let's remember that this was farm country. And it's important to remember the lives that were made through farming and that it still continues today. And so doing outreach to farmers and helping to tell the stories of agriculture, I think is really important.
I appreciate you bringing that aspect up, and we're going to be covering also the 1968 exhibit.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
Can we talk about future exhibits at the History Center that you have on deck?
Yes, we are really excited about our exhibit coming up in 2020. It's going to be about women voting and the 19th Amendment, which is celebrating its centennial, and women's suffrage. And the Mayos brought some incredibly important and very smart women here to Rochester, and they were thinking about suffrage vote, or the suffrage movement, and voting rights for women, and writing about it and speaking out about it well before it eventually happened. So we want to tell those stories about those women who were fighting for it and advocating for it, like really fighting for their rights and creating an amendment to our United States Constitution, which is huge. But it also then brings up the rights of others who are excluded from our democracy, including many Native Americans, including some immigrants, and also African Americans, whether through legal or illegal means. So it's all about people who are excluded fighting for their right to make a difference in this country through the vote. So that's really super important. And it's exciting and it's inspiring. I'm inspired by that story of people fighting to be full citizens. And we are looking forward to inviting residents to come see the story come alive. So we're going to have a really wonderful exhibit.
Will it be live and interactive too?
Yes, we
Okay,
are going to have
that's
some
great.
interactive
Wow.
components so people can go into a voting booth.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, like it was back in the
Yes,
day? Wow.
exactly. Yep. And we are collaborating with our own Women's History Circle. They're actually leading the charge on this,
Okay.
and I'm so grateful to have them there. And then also the League of Women Voters, the state branch of the League of Women Voters are also going to be collaborating with us too. So it's super exciting. Yeah, it's going to be a big deal.
Awesome. Okay, and to wrap it up, where do you see the History Center in 10 years?
That's a really important question, and one that we had a strategic planning workshop about just the other day. And we identified 3 strategic directions that are critical to where we're going to end up in 10 years. One is to strengthen our foundation. That means get better at fundraising, get better at friend raising. The other is letting people know that we're here. And that means getting the word out to downtown Rochester.
Okay.
We know that being on the outskirts of town, we need to connect with downtown. And so that's going to be a really important strategic direction. And then the third is to honor our legacy, which is the George Stoppel Farmstead.
Okay.
That's an actual farm with a barn and a house and caves.
Perfect.
And we have to preserve that, and so the public can go in and learn about farming and the farmstead.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Wayne.
Yeah, you're
and
welcome.
of course, people can find out information on your website
Yep.
that we will share. And thank you so much.
Our Town is brought to you in part by the following amazing people and organizations.
The Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, and the citizens of Minnesota.
And the members of KSMQ Public Television. Thank you.
Be sure to stick around. We have more great stories coming up next. It's 1968, and haircuts were apparently worthy of some serious messaging. And Ward 4 is having a very lively discussion about parking. But up first, we celebrate jazz music in this week's Our Culture segment.
I would definitely say that jazz is in my blood. I enjoy jazz a lot. I'm a trombonist, and it's been my pleasure to, kind of curate and found this Rochester City Jazz Fest. We're in the 4th year, and I tell you what, I wouldn't be doing it for 4 years if I didn't love it. So. My name's John Sievers, and I am the founder and curator for the Rochester City Jazz Festival. The Rochester City Jazz Festival this year is expanded into a 3-day event. It starts on Friday, November 8th, and we're going to have a kind of a pre-party at Thesis Brewery with Liz Draper and Tasha Barron from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a free event. On Saturday, November 9th, there's going to be a show at the Grey Duck Theater, and we're featuring the H3O Jazz Trio. They're from Winona. It's a father and son group, and what they're going to do is they're going to play a set of music and then for about an hour, and then they're going to accompany 2 Charlie Chaplin films for an hour, so it's going to be like a live jazz soundtrack for these Charlie Chaplin films, which should be fun. It's kind of a new thing that we haven't done, and that's in partnership with the Grey Duck. And then that night from 8 to 11 o'clock p.m., my band, the Sievers, is going to be hosting a jazz jam at Forager Brewery, so people from the community can come and bring their instruments and sign up to sit in with the band and like play a song on a jazz standard with the Deceivers kind of backing them up. So that's a lot of fun. We have everyone from 8-year-olds to 92-year-olds coming into that event, so it's always awesome to just kind of see what's going to happen there. And then kind of the main festival event is on Sunday, November 10th. And it's going to be at the Castle Community in downtown Rochester. It starts at 1:30 and it goes to 8 p.m. and we have music going all day through that time period. There's 2 floors of music, so the main floor is in the Les Fields Hall on the 3rd floor of the Castle Community. And there we're going to kick off the day appropriately with the Les Fields and Turkey River All-Stars. Then we're going to have the Constellation Band. We're also going to have J.C. Sanford, who is a trombonist, and he's bringing his trio. Then we're going to have local group Lasagna and 2 O'Clock Jump. Then we're going to finish it off with Lucia Sarmiento, her quintet. So it should be awesome. And then that night, we're going to go ahead and have an after party at Cameo with Loudmouth Brass. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're hoping that the community comes out and just has a good time, listening to some jazz and hanging out. One of the things I'm really excited about this year is just how much the community has stepped up to sponsor the event. I've reached out to a variety of sponsors and they've really kind of stepped up to the plate. So we have sponsorships with breweries like the Thesis Beer Project and Forager Brewery. Also the Threshold Arts in the Castle, they've been a sponsor for it. Other things even like Taco Jed has sponsored it. My Town, My Music. Different like community groups have just really come together, the Jive Mill, to help make this happen, and it's exciting to see all those people, you know, pitching in and contributing to jazz.
That's a lot to remember. Oh my gosh.
For more information about this story and other Our Town features, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter at KSMQ #OurTown, or ksmq.org/OurTown.
This the kind of thing they never teach you. I never thought I'd ever have to leave you on your own. Baby, take care of your heart every day that I'm not with you. If you're ever scared of the dark, remember I told you.
If you haven't been into the Rochester Art Center lately, you might want to make a trip. Arts on the Verge 10 is an exhibit that opened on October 7th and will run until February 7th. 5 Minnesota-based artists are exploring the intersection of art, technology, and digital culture through a mentor-based fellowship. Exhibits are interactive, so be prepared to get involved. Rack hours are Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. POCO, the community survey tool being used by the City of Rochester, is looking for your feedback about the proposed city budget. The current question asks, are there any services provided by the city that you would recommend receive a high priority during the budget process in order to better serve the public? The final budget is adopted by the City Council in December, so you definitely have time to share your thoughts. The complete budget can be found at rochestermn.gov. If you're craving a cup of coffee, something that I enjoy myself, and your little ones are craving a creative activity, check out Anna's Craft Counter at Grey Duck's Coffee and Theater on Thursdays from 2 to 5 p.m. Supplies are provided and the activity is free. Get those little hands busy while you take a moment to recharge. Details at Grey Duck's Facebook page. The library is reopening the second floor, exactly 1 month after a major water leak damaged the Rochester Public Library. Officials say most of the heavily used second floor reopened this week. Second floor spaces houses the non-fiction collection, additional seating, and reading spaces, and private study rooms. Many but not all of the services that take place on the second floor will be open, but it's a start. Congratulations and thanks to Audrey Betcher and her staff for their hard work getting things back in shape. Keep up to date on their continued work at rplmn.org. Coming up next, we beat feet down the street to check out the Fab 1960s exhibit at History Center of Olmsted County on this week's Walkabout segment.
Hello, welcome to the History Center of Olmsted County. My name is Wayne Gannaway, and I am the Executive Director here. I wanted to welcome you in particular to this fabulous traveling exhibit that we have about 1968, probably one of the most important years in the latter half of the 20th century. There was upheaval, there was change. You could see that in the politics, in the music, and in the culture. Let's take a look at some of the headlines, like Dr. C.W. Mayo killed in car accident. IBM studies possible plant expansion. But we also have national stories that were really having a big effect. Stokely Carmichael tells Negroes, arm, take to the streets. Tony Oliva weds to white girl. Robert Kennedy shot in the head. I'm a huge music fan, right? So I really like the fact that you can flip through these various album covers. You got Johnny Cash. These are all albums that came out in 1968. Simon and Garfunkel, of course.
Hi, I'm Dan Nowakowski. I'm the curator here at the museum. This is actually all the high school yearbook photos from the high schools here in town, and Stewartville and Byron. I played basketball. Could you imagine wearing shorts that short still? Here is the homecoming court for John Marshall. It's one of the few colorized photos in the John Marshall High School yearbook.
Make Love, Not War. What is that from?
That is from Lourdes High School.
Lourdes High School, wow. My name is Wayne Gannaway, the Executive Director, and I am inviting you to come out to the History Center of Olmsted County.
Did you recognize any of those faces from 1960s? I love how yearbooks cement the style of generation. Well, getting back to today's issues, my next guest is here to help us understand the uproar recently created by a few stripes of paint on the asphalt. Welcome to welcome to Ward 4 Council Member Mark Bilderback. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about a parking lot that has caused quite a stir. Yes. Tell us about the phone call you received regarding the situation and alerted you to what was going on.
I heard about it like everybody else through the media when they said Mayo had announced that this is going to be a parking lot for 1,400 cars. That was the first time I heard about it, so I heard about it like everybody else.
And how did you feel when you heard about it? And what was it was a mixture of emotion from people, right? So
yes.
Some were for it, some were against it.
And some didn't care.
Oh, some didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mine was disbelief and disappointment. I expect us to work with the developers, the people who want to do these kinds of things closer. I had put out feelers to some of the developers in the area that I felt would probably be working on it, saying that, hey, if this is a Mayo parking lot, I want to know, we need to be there. This process started a long time ago because Kmart was in bankruptcy, so for this group to purchase that, they had to be working at this for a long time because it had to go through court. So I felt it would have been nice for us to know, especially since we just recently voted on the traffic overlay district, the TOD, or the R2X residential district, so that would have been nice to know. So the comments have been all over, of course, most vocal from those who are against the project,
Okay.
but I have heard from both sides.
So who currently owns Kmart?
Kmart is owned by a group, I know a couple of them. Merle Groteberg is the realtor that's been doing this with them. I believe I've heard the name Pat Reagan, but I don't know who the official group is.
Okay.
We've just been working with Mayo and with Merle Groteberg.
So what is the partnership between the two? There's an interest from Mayo Clinic to have the parking lot and then an interest from the owner to collaborate with them on it?
That's correct.
Okay. And what is the process with the planning and zoning ordinances?
Sure.
How does that all entail? How did this get missed?
Well, that's a really good question.
Okay.
And the developer and ownership group are pointing their fingers at each other saying, I thought they were going to do it, they thought they were going to do it. That's nice, great, but both these groups have worked with the city on a number of projects. They should have known better to check the box, and that didn't happen.
Okay.
And so the process now is a week ago Tuesday, around the 15th of October, there was a meeting with the neighbors. Again, something I was very disappointed with, because instead of having the meeting in the neighborhood, they had it over in Northwest at the site of the developer or one of their architects. That allowed, and they had it at 6 o'clock at night, which was very difficult for people to get across town. So I'm unhappy with that. We're going to change the ordinance. I've already been working on that to make sure that these types of meetings are held in the area where the activity is going to happen.
Okay.
So people were very upset about that as well. The people that were at the meeting representing Mayo and the ownership group were only able to hear. They really didn't have the power to make any kind of changes. But that's all right, because these meetings are to inform the neighbors. So 22nd of October, we had a neighborhood association meeting where we got to talk about a lot of things that we're talking about here. The process now is they had to have that neighborhood meeting, and within 30 days they have to show up in front of planning and zoning. This is a type 3 area, so there won't be any public hearing at the planning and zoning, but people still can show up, make comment in the open comment period, and then also submit letters and emails to the city to let them know.
What are the neighbors sharing as far as concerns go, and do you share the same concerns?
Absolutely. There's a bunch of them that I have from traffic control, so I want to see a traffic analysis done. That's in the works. We have not seen that. Big concern is when cars go in and out, we don't know if they're going to have drop arms and make you use a key card to get in, which will cause a lot of stacking onto the road, cars backing up onto the road. That's a one-way, one lane each way on 9th Street, so that could create a lot of problems where the exits are located, or entrances, especially close to 3rd Avenue and also to Broadway. I'm concerned because 1st Avenue, if they come straight out 1st Avenue to leave, that road has a bend in it along with stop signs that people rarely stop at. That could be a problem. Also, if they go 9th Street through 9th Street, you got 8th and 11th Avenue, which has the intersections, controlled intersections on the Beltline. You also have Lincoln at Man on 8th. So if people start running up 8th, and if it's during when school's out, you have one lane of traffic basically, because buses and parents picking up their children. There is no two ways to get through there. If they go to 11th, they still have to go by Lincoln at Man. If they go down to 6th, they go by Riverside Central. So traffic is a real concern. The neighbors are concerned about parking in the neighborhoods as well, which would simply is, if people came in and there's nothing to tell them that the lot was full, they're not going to go back out to Graham Park. They're not going to go out to RCTC. They're going to just turn around and park wherever they can park. So I've asked that they put signage along the way to let people know if the lot's full, so that they don't come into the neighborhood. So
so here's where we're going to get
okay
to the bottom line here. What do you think is the best use for the Kmart parking lot building?
Yeah, well, and the Kmart building will be tore down.
Okay.
Is the plan. My goal is to try to figure out and work with the planners and with the city to figure out how do we best protect the neighborhood.
Okay.
I don't know where we're going to go, and I really can't say because we'll be in a quasi-judicial role.
Right.
So we have to hear all the information before we can make a deal. And it's best for me not to at this point anyhow, because I want to work out the best we can do for the neighborhoods. That's who put me into office. That's who I represent. That's what I need to do.
Can I make a suggestion?
Uh-huh.
How about a water park?
Yeah. Well,
would that be totally out of line or no?
Well, as long as it took us to get the 3rd Avenue fountain done, I don't think that's a good idea.
That's hilarious. Okay, so people that are following the issues, how can they follow this and where can they get updates?
Yeah, they should be able to get information on the city website, because it should tell them when they come to planning and zoning, which should be in November. It'll show up in front of the council in sometime in December, the 2nd or 16th, and that will be a public hearing, so they can speak. They'll have 4 minutes to speak, and as many of them want to talk can talk.
4 minutes each?
4 minutes each.
That could be a long, long meeting.
Well, I was involved in the one that went till 4:18 in the morning, so you know it's not that big a deal.
So no one can filibuster it then?
No,
it's exactly 4 minutes. And
they get 4 minutes and it moves on to the next person. Usually the council president has the option of letting them go a few minutes over, or a few seconds over. Let's not say minutes, but a few seconds over.
Is there anything else you want to share on this topic at all?
It's just that people need to understand there is not a deal in place yet. Asphalting had to be done before November 15th because that's when the asphalt plants typically shut down. So then what happened between them and Mayo, the ownership in Mayo, was between them. It was not with the city, and there's no guarantee that anything that they wish to happen will happen at this point.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am really glad that you came here and shared about this. The one other thing that just popped in my mind, the circular transit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about that, and how is that connected to this at all?
Yeah, it will be. It could be. Right now, the length of lease is up in the air, but it could be something that happens that way. I would rather see this turn into a development with housing and things of that nature.
Okay.
But it could. We're 5 years away from, if everything goes perfectly in order, 5 years away from before the circulator's even going to touch the road.
Well, we definitely got to figure something out.
Yes,
right?
we do.
Okay,
yes,
so thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. Nicole will be back next week. I've enjoyed hanging out with you. This is Danielle Teal from the University of Minnesota in Rochester for Our Town.